We're making an Easter basket. We're going to start with our handle, fold both long raw edges into the center, and then fold the entire handle in half, hot dog style. Then we're going to take it to our sewing machine and we're going to sew parallel lines at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to create a nice top stitch. Next, with our main fabric, we're going to draw on our boxed corners. 2.5 inch boxed corners on the long edge. I've got both of my main fabric pieces here put together. Once you cut those out, grab the lining pieces and go ahead and do the exact same thing with the 2.5 inch box and get those cut out. Next, I'm going to grab my main fabric pieces once again, and I'm going to place those right sides together, and we're going to sew all the way around the 3 edges. I'm sewing here at about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Next, I'm going to sew up those boxed corners by matching up the bottom and side seam on both of the corners where we have cut out the squares. Once you get both of those corners sewn up, sewing at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, then we're actually going to grab our lining pieces and essentially do the same thing again. Special note on the lining pieces, you'll want to make sure that down here at the bottom, see how I'm skipping? That's because I'm leaving an opening there because that's going to be where our turning hole is. And I'm sewing at just over 1/4 of an inch seam allowance here with the lining pieces. As you're sewing up your box corners, be sure to evenly distribute the bulk of the seams so that way your machine just doesn't have any trouble running over those side seams. Right now your lining should look something like this, and it should still have that hole in the bottom. Now I'm going to turn my lining right side out and line up my handle where it should go, and I'm essentially centering it on the side seams on each side. Make sure your handle's not twisted or anything, and then grab your main fabric piece. Your lining and main fabric should be right sides together, and you should have the handle sandwiched in between the side seams on both sides. Once you get that lined up, go ahead and put some extra clips on there, and we're going to sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around the top, securing the lining to the main fabric and also securing those handles. Once you get this top sewn all the way around, you're ready for the big reveal. So go ahead and turn your entire project right side out through your turning hole. Once you get that turned out, fiddle around with it a little bit to make sure that everything looks the way that you want it to. Make sure everything's nice and crisp. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew a top stitch at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way around the top. Then we're going to take out that lining and sew up the bottom. Once you've sewn up the bottom to close up that turning hole, then your project is actually finished. You just want to make sure that you fiddle with it a little bit so that you can get the shape and structure the way you want it. If you want this project to be ultra structured, you can use some Decaville Light. I just use the interfacing that we have in our TikTok shop on the outside main fabric. You've done it.